You don't have to be a national security expert, a border security expert to know that our national media is obsessed with a number of asylum seekers who are coming across our southern border. Yet over and over and over again, we keep hearing how the border is so overrun, how the Border Patrol itself is overwhelmed. One thing I want to make clear is CBP, Customs and Border Protection, those are the people in blue at the ports of entry who process asylum seekers. Border Patrol are the agents in green. That's what I was. And we were in between the ports of entry to apprehend anybody who's crossing illegally or irregularly, and any goods that are perhaps going across without inspection. As these reports come out from right-wing media, and then mainstream media picks it up, as well as sometimes left-wing media, that the border is being overrun and that the Border Patrol is being overwhelmed by all people who are crossing irregularly in between the ports of entry. I want to remind you of what the media is not telling you, that the media has conveniently forgotten to mention in all these reports, that literally since 2019 until May of 2023, the asylum system of the United States has pretty much been shut down, with few exceptions. In January of 2019, former President Donald Trump enacted what was called Migration Protection Protocols, otherwise known as MPP, or Remain in Mexico. This policy stated that instead of migrants applying for asylum, being inspected, and then continuing on to the United States to wait for their immigration hearings, that they would be required to remain in Mexico for months, sometimes years, to wait for their immigration hearings. When migrants thought that they had a chance, that this was possibly a policy that although they had to wait and they had a chance, they oftentimes did wait. They waited in the shelters. Many waited until they died, until they were kidnapped, until they were raped, until they were ransomed. But people still waited because they thought they had a chance. But just a year later, in March of 2020, Donald Trump also enacted Title 42 in response to COVID-19, which essentially shut down the entire asylum system for the United States. It's important to note that Trump didn't enact Title 42 because he was so worried about COVID. Let's remember he told Americans to put bleach in their veins, to ingest bleach, and that might cure their COVID. He also didn't believe in COVID and wouldn't wear a mask. So yes, he enacted a law during a pandemic time, but the truth of the matter is that they have been trying to enact that law in previous years, using mumps as an excuse and all other kinds of respiratory infections found in processing centers. So it wasn't actually to fight COVID. It was actually about just shutting down the asylum system. And Title 42 lasted from March of 2020 until this year in May of 2023. That means the entire U.S. asylum system was shut down from January of 2019 to May of 2023. That is literally over 4 years worth of asylum seekers that would have been inspected at our ports of entry that were not and were told to wait. So what happened to all those asylum seekers? Did they just go away? Well, no, they didn't go away. The fact is, when legal avenues of asylum at the ports of entry are shut down and asylum seekers cannot submit themselves to CBP for inspection for asylum, well, then your numbers of people who are crossing irregularly are going to go up. That's just a fact. And that's why when we saw at the end of Title 42, when everybody in the media was saying, oh my gosh, everything's going to go crazy, so many people are going to cross and this and that, it actually went down because the asylum seekers thought they had a legal avenue. And it only took a couple of months for them to realize that even though the ports of entry, at least 8 of them, have opened up to process asylum seekers, they were still metering people at the ports of entry. And so still very few of the asylum seekers could get appointments. And therefore, the numbers went back up because there are not enough legal avenues for people to cross legally as opposed to irregularly. This is the lesson taught to us from MPP and Title 42. If you close down the routes to asylum, the legal routes to asylum, then you will find people crossing irregularly time and time again. I know this as a former agent. I know this as an immigrant rights activist. Asylum seekers do not want to go across the deserts, the mountains, and the rivers of our southern border unless they absolutely have no other choice. So the increases that we have seen off and on during the Biden administration and people crossing irregularly and overwhelming the Border Patrol, that can be directly attributed to Donald Trump and his policies of MPP and Title 42. But this last month, November of 2023, we have seen another increase in people crossing irregularly. So what is all that about? Well, as my friend Bridget, who's an immigration attorney and talks to asylum seekers and helps asylum seekers, talked about on X, the fact is it's the Border Patrol Union and Republicans who are to blame for this increase. When you get on television and you talk about how you're going to shut all pathways to any kind of asylum within the United States, and when the Border Patrol Union is constantly on right-wing media talking about how the border is wide open and we need to close it down, which includes closing down the entire asylum system, asylum seekers, they know what that means. Once again, we're going back to Title 42, and they've even mentioned that we should have another Title 42. So this rush that you're seeing right now, the rush to come to the border, the increase in people who are crossing irregularly in between the ports of entry is being caused because half of the government is saying we're going to again shut down the asylum system. So they are creating this. It gets spread by right-wing media outlets, of course, and then the mainstream media picks it up. So you can blame all this right now on Republicans, but beyond how many people are crossing the southern border, what right-wing media is saying, what now mainstream media is saying. Is this really true? Are they really telling us the truth? I mean, because we got to remember that Fox News is the one that spread the disinformation about the big lie of the election. We got to remember how much the Border Patrol loves Donald Trump and all these things. So is it really true that the Border Patrol is being overwhelmed right now by the amount of people who cannot seek asylum legally at a port of entry and are therefore being left with the only choice of crossing irregularly in order to save their lives? Let's look at it. So a lot of people in the media right now are saying that CBP has encountered 250,000 asylum seekers in November of 2023. That's a lot of people. But the key word here is encountered, because at CBP, people walk up to the port of entry. So that's an encounter. At Border Patrol, in between the ports of entry, people cross irregularly and wait for the Border Patrol, or they try and get past the Border Patrol, one or the other. That 250,000 number that these media outlets are reporting is the combination of people coming to our ports of entry and crossing irregularly. So they're combining CBP's numbers at the ports with Border Patrol's numbers in between the ports. And that is completely and intentionally misleading. That's two different things. The actual number of people who crossed irregularly this last November and were apprehended by the U.S. Border Patrol is actually a little over 190,000. It's 191,113. That's the number apprehended coming across the border without inspection, apprehended by Border Patrol, without all the people who tried to do it legally at CBP. It's still a high number. I'm not going to deny that. In this chart, you see actually where the truth lies. It's not about the total number of migrants apprehended. It's about the number of migrants apprehended versus the amount of agents on duty. So when I was an agent in 1996, we had a little less than 6,000 agents. And per month, we were averaging about 130,000 apprehensions. That averages out to be just under 23 apprehensions per agent per month. Today, so this last month, with these outrageous numbers, yes, they're higher than they have been. In November, they have over 19,000 agents. That's 3 times as many agents. They're not having 3 times as many apprehensions. Let me tell you that. Not even close. That averages out, we'll round it up. We'll say it's 10, 9.87 as the graph shows. So today's agents have to apprehend roughly about 10 people crossing the border irregularly every month, versus in the 90s when we had to apprehend roughly 23 per month. You see what I'm saying? Additionally, I think it's also important to point out that the media is not telling the American public that the entire southern border is not overwhelmed. They keep saying that it's overwhelmed, but truthfully, there's only about 4 or 5 sectors that are seeing increases. The other sectors have dropped dramatically. In fact, San Diego, Tucson, Del Rio are seeing the majority of people who are crossing. El Paso a little bit. But in El Centro, in Yuma, Big Bend, Laredo, even Rio Grande Valley isn't really that busy for as many agents as they have. I mean, just looking at Big Bend alone, they had 906. So they're not that busy. And the Border Patrol chief has the ability to move Border Patrol agents from station or from sector to sector in what is called temporary details. You usually do about a month. Sometimes you can do longer. Sometimes details can last years. But generally, in a temporary detail, it's usually about a month. And so they can move agents from one sector to another sector if needed. And as far as I know, and as far as I've heard, they are not doing that. So I guess the question becomes if Republicans and the Border Patrol Union and the right-wing media, who all claim to be so interested in securing our southern border, why would they advocate for policies like MPP and Title 42 that just create more people crossing irregularly? Why would they want to purposely overwhelm Border Patrol agents? See, right-wing media and Republicans are the ones who spread the lies, the big lie about the last election, and fomented the anger that led to January 6th and the lies that led to January 6th are now spreading lies and fomenting anger about our southern border and asylum seekers. This is political. All these actors want the asylum system to shut down simply because it gives them the optics that they're looking for. Specifically, it gives them the optics of asylum seekers of color crossing the southern border without inspection. This is the optics they want. They want the optics, the visuals of a lot of people crossing irregularly. They want Americans to see that because they know that then Americans will go out and vote for Donald Trump. They're playing politics. This is why the Border Patrol Union is on right-wing media every day telling lies. This is why the Republicans are trying to bully the Biden administration into shutting down the asylum system, which will just cause more and more people to cross irregularly without inspection and overwhelm the Border Patrol. It helps push the voters towards re-electing Donald Trump. This is a political operation and just another way in which conservatives are trying to help create another insurrection. And you in the media, especially you in mainstream media, who are not down here on the border and generally just report what DHS tells you to report, you are helping contribute to this. You are helping contribute to the idea that the border is overwhelmed and overrun when actually Border Patrol agents are apprehending less migrants per month than we did in 1996. The media is failing us on this. Security on the border relies on many different things, but the main thing is that there has to be legal access to asylum. Without legal access to asylum, people will cross irregularly. It is only through inspecting people at our ports of entry that we then can have any semblance of security on our southern border. If you want asylum seekers to stop crossing irregularly, then you have to maintain a robust and humane asylum system that offers security to the United States. It inspects people that come through, while at the same time offering humane systems so that people then do not cross irregularly. Asylum is a right. It is legal in the United States. If you shut our asylum system down, you will ensure that there is chaos on the border.